The morning sun had barely climbed over the crooked rooftops when the knock came, heavy and final, like the world itself demanding an answer. For a split second, Elias Crow thought it was another bill collector or a neighbor complaining about the noise from the loose window frame. He never imagined that within minutes, his quiet, struggling life would be shaken so violently that nothing would ever feel the same again. Sometimes, a single act of kindness looks small in the moment, almost invisible, yet it can summon consequences so massive that they arrive in the form of 10 black SUVs blocking your street, engines humming like a warning from fate itself. Before we go deeper into this story, take a moment right now. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that often feels cold, if you believe people deserve second chances, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Spark. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Elias Crow was 36, a single father with tired eyes and hands permanently rough from honest labor. His small rented house sat at the edge of a forgotten neighborhood where sidewalks cracked like old scars and paint peeled from walls as if even the houses were exhausted. Every day began the same way, with sunlight filtering through thin curtains and landing on the face of his 6-year-old son, Rowan. That light was the only thing in Elias's life that felt steady. Since Rowan's mother passed away 3 years earlier from a sudden illness, Elias had been both parents, the provider, the comforter, the disciplinarian, and the dreamer. He worked daytime shifts at a warehouse loading trucks, a job that paid just enough to keep the lights on if he skipped a meal or two each week. Money was always tight, painfully tight. Elias counted every dollar like it was fragile glass. His wallet that morning held exactly $10 folded. Neatly, saved for bread, milk, and a cheap pack of noodles to last until his next paycheck. He knew the number because he had checked it 3 times already, standing in the small kitchen while Rowan ate cereal watered down with more water than milk. Elias smiled anyway because Rowan smiled, and that was enough reason to pretend everything was fine. On his walk to the warehouse later that morning, the city felt unusually alive. Buses hissed at stops, vendors shouted prices, and the sun shone bright enough to expose every flaw and hope at once. That was when Elias noticed her. She stood near the corner of a busy intersection, not begging loudly or waving signs, just standing still, holding a small, torn backpack against her chest. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s, with dust on her shoes and eyes that carried both fear and pride. Something about her felt out of place, like a story paused in the wrong chapter. Elias told himself to keep walking. He had done that 100 times before. He had learned the hard way that you couldn't save everyone when you were barely surviving yourself. But as he passed, their eyes met, and in that brief connection he saw something that haunted him. It was the same look Rowan had worn the night Elias had to explain why they were eating plain rice for dinner again. It was the look of someone trying very hard not to ask. He slowed, his steps heavy with hesitation. His mind raced through numbers, meals, and consequences. $10 wasn't much to most people, but to Elias it was food, it was security, it was peace for at least one more day. Yet his feet stopped moving, and his hand found his wallet almost against his will. He pulled out the bill, feeling its thinness, and pressed it into the stranger's hand without ceremony. He didn't ask questions or wait for gratitude. He simply nodded and kept walking, his chest tight and his stomach already calculating hunger. The rest of the day passed in a blur of lifting boxes and wiping sweat from his brow. Hunger gnawed at him, sharper than usual, but Elias pushed through it the way he always did. He returned home in the afternoon, the sun still high, to find Rowan drawing on scrap paper at the table. They shared a small meal made from what little was left in the pantry. Elias told himself that tomorrow would somehow work itself out. It always did, or at least it had so far. That night, sleep came late and restless. Elias lay awake thinking about the girl, wondering if the $10 had been enough to help her or if it had vanished into some problem he could never fix. He didn't expect anything in return. He had already forgotten the exact sound of her footsteps as she walked away. Kindness to him wasn't a transaction, it was a reflex shaped by loss. Morning arrived clear and bright again, sunlight spilling across the street in a way that made everything look almost hopeful. Elias was tying his boots when the low rumble began. At first, he thought it was construction or distant traffic. Then the sound grew louder, heavier, until the entire street seemed to vibrate. He stepped outside, squinting against the sun, and froze. 10 black SUVs rolled in slowly, one after another, their polished surfaces reflecting the humble houses around them like mirrors of another world. They parked with unsettling precision, surrounding Elias's small home as if it were the center of some carefully planned operation. Neighbors peeked through curtains and doorways. A few stepped outside, whispering. Elias's heart pounded so hard it felt like it might crack his ribs. His first thought was fear, raw and paralyzing. His second was Rowan, still inside, unaware. The doors of the SUVs opened almost in unison. Men and women in tailored suits stepped out, their expressions serious, scanning the area. It didn't look like a police raid, but it didn't look friendly either. Elias's mind raced through every mistake he had ever made, every unpaid bill, every moment he had. Cut corners just to survive. He felt small, exposed, like the ground beneath him might give way. Then she stepped forward,